All right, so I'm going to be going over the Metro Exodus SDK today. Um, Basically, to start off, if you want to start playing any of the mods for Metro Exodus or creating any of the mods, you need the Metro Exodus SDK that came out recently in a few months. So there's two ways you can get the Metro Exodus SDK. The first way is the Epic Center games. So if you go here and you have Metro Exodus installed, the Standard Edition or the Enhanced Edition, there's an add-on section for it where you can look. And right here on the enhanced edition that I'm running in the Epic Game Store, you can see that I have the SDK installed as an add-on with the rest of the add-ons in the game. Another way to get the Metro Exodus SDK is if you have the game in Steam instead of the Epic Game Store. In your Steam library, you should have the ability to search for the Metro Exodus SDK and install it there as an add-on. So that's the two places you'll get the Metro Exodus SDK. So, with that being said, you're going to have two different install directories depending on where you have the Metro Exodus game. So, for me, when I installed the Metro Exodus SDK for the Epic games instead of Steam, if you go to your location where you have Epic Games installed, most people probably have it defaulted into your C drive. You'll have it here like Epic Games, and then you'll go into this Enhanced Edition, or either it's probably the Standard Edition. You go in here, you'll have all this, and then here you have the primary SDK folder. So if you go in this, you go into the primary SDK folder, go down. Here you can see here's the Exodus SDK executable. This is where you're going to be using basically everything regarding the mods, like to play the mods, to create the mods. So what we're going to do is before we open up the SDK and get into that, I'm going to go over where the mods are for the game. So there's two places you can look for mods for Metro Exodus. One would be Nexus mods, and the other one would be Mod.io. I've looked at Nexus mods, and there isn't any like story or like campaign mods that have been created. It's mostly like reshades and skins. The only place I've found so far where there is actually like playable mods, as far as like little campaigns or little stories or levels that people have made, is Mod.io. So if I go to the Mod.io Exodus SDK webpage here, this is all the active mods that have been created and listed on Mod.io. So you can see here, there's like a demo, there's this work in progress one, and pretty much all these are work in progress. So if you're playing these, sometimes they'll just like end. There's like no scripted events or cutscenes or anything like that. You're just playing what's been made so far. So I played both of these, the Wingless one and the Shadow one. And the way you get these in order to play them in the SDK is you just go in here, and you'll look at the mod, and there's like a description of what all goes into it, and there's comments and stuff like that. But you don't have to subscribe to any of this to get the mods. All you got to do is just go down here where it says download the files manually, and just download the files. These are pretty big as far as like zipped up files. When you extract them out, they can take quite a bit. But I've downloaded both of these, and so we'll take a look at these real quick. And so for these mods, you can just put them wherever you want in your folder directories. So what I did was here I got both of those mods that's on the website. We got the Wingless one and then the Shadow one. I end up extracting these out. You don't have to do anything with these. You just simply extract them. So if you want to play these, what you'll do is you'll just open up the Exodus SDK, and depending on what your computer is, if you're running like solid state drives, NVMe's, stuff like that, it might take a while to do stuff with the SDK. But this is what the SDK looks like when you first load it up. Essentially, this main is everything that's like original to the SDK without like having any mods. So like if I go in here, I haven't made any mods yet. It's just the main parent one. So if you want to play any of the mods that we just downloaded, what you'll do is you'll go to add existing mod. You'll go to the location where you put your mods. So here I have the shadow one and the wingless one. So you don't want to click on like the subfolders it generates when you unzip it. You want to click on like the child folders here. So like this one right here and this one right here. So the first one we're going to do is the shadow one. So we're going to click on this, hit OK. I'm just going to call it shadow. And what you want to do with these is there's two ways you can run these mods. And the way I found is you can either launch it in the editor or launch it in the game. The shadow mod, you can launch it with this game one, and it actually plays like the game. Like it'll go in the main menu. You can select a level and play it. But the Wingless mod, if you do launch game, it crashes every single time, and I've not found a way to do it. So you have to launch it in the editor. So if you come across any mods that like you add in here, and then you try to launch the game and it keeps crashing on you, just launch it in the editor. But we'll go over that here in a little bit. Right now, we'll just choose the one that actually works with launch the game. So what you do is you'll see here when I added existing, the shadow one showed up. And what you're going to do is choose this 000 built one, and then you're just going to launch the game. Alright, so you can see here that I loaded up the mod, shadow one, I got in, and you wait for everything to load in, and what you'll do is you'll go to the level select, and here you can see where it's like SDK test. You can't really see it, but if you click on this, it'll take you in the game. And then it starts to load in, and sometimes it might take a minute, or you might have to reload it. It seems like the more you use it, the better it gets. Alright, and then when everything's loaded, you just hit E, kind of like the main game. And pretty much that's it. For the shadow mod, you get in and start playing, and you'll play through this whole level. I'm not going to spoil it, but once you reach all the way to the end, like I said, it's work in progress by the creator, so you'll just end up Xing out of it when you hit the very end of it. There's no prompts or like that. Okay, so now after we have the shadow mod, if you want to play the other wingless mod, which is the mod that I'm assuming it's just not built right, is the reason you can't do launch game. So you have to launch it in the editor. That's the only way you can play it. So what you'll do is you go back to the main selection. You'll choose add existing mod. You'll go to where you have your mods. And kind of like the other one, you'll select the child folder that's right here. You hit OK, and I'll just name this Wingless. Oh, I'm sorry. I chose the wrong one. Sorry. It was, yeah, the Wingless one. This one right here. I'll just name that Wingless. Hit OK. And then this one, what you're going to do is run the wingless one. So just hit the 000 right here for the built. You'll expand this, make sure you check on the mod, the story of the wingless, and then hit launch editor. And this, depending on your computer, might take a while for it to render everything, load all the assets in to where you can play it. So, okay, so once everything's loaded in, essentially you want it to look like this before you start playing the game. So you want to see where you're kind of in this environment. If you're not in this environment, usually if I load this mod back up and it's not on this level, what you can do is if you go up here and you hit open, you don't have to save this. And in here, when you hit open folder, you'll choose this, and you'll hit OK, and then it'll reload it. so like that. But if you are on the main menu, like if you log back in and you're on the main menu where it's like it has the train, you don't want to try to choose a level through that. You can't select levels like in game when you're in the SDK like editor. So if you want to play this, basically all you got to do is there's this 2 game option right here at the top, like in this whole menu bar. What you'll do is you'll hit 2 game. It'll take you to the starting point, like in the mod, so you can see right here I'm in the room, and you can start playing the game. Like I can pick everything up. And so if you want to go full screen in this, what you'll do is you'll hit Alt Enter. So here you can see I went full screen, and basically like you're playing the game. And then if you hit Alt Enter again, you'll go back out. If you're done like playing this mod, to get like truly out of it, you can't like Alt Tab or anything out of it. What you have to do is you hit Control Escape, and then it'll kind of like buffer for a minute, and then you'll get this confirmation, and you'll just hit No, and then be returned back to it where you could either go in game or exit out of it. So yeah, don't Alt Tab because it'll kind of freeze up and just hang there. So it's Control Escape is to get out of that. Yep. And you can save in these, but they're so short, the mods, you don't really need to save in them. And so yep, that's pretty much how you play the mods. Okay, so with learning how to play the mods that are currently available to download, what we're going to do now is go in the SDK, and we're going to learn how to basically like navigate our way through the SDK and look at all the stuff that's existing in it. So if you go back to the main, where all the original SDK stuff is, there is the 06 bridge level. This is essentially the Volga level in the main campaign. It has everything in the level, from like all the scripting, the scenes, all the AI, the NPCs, the enemies, like everything you can imagine from the level is in this bridge level. And then in these other ones, these are like test environments, so you can look at the monsters, NPCs, test environment, stuff like that. But the one we're going to look at is the bridge level, since it has like almost everything viewable. So what we'll do is we're not going to create anything or add existing, since it's already there. All you got to do is launch the editor. Okay, so after waiting quite a while, the more you use the SDK and the levels, the more the assets are like preloaded, so it gets a little bit faster. But what you'll do is you can see here I loaded up the Volga level, and now I'm like at the church part. So if you want to move around in this, like I'm kind of just free looking right now, if you hold the middle mouse button like down, you can just move your mouse and free look. But if you actually want to like move around the map, what you do is you hold Shift and just use your W, D, and A and S keys to move around. So like right now I'm just free looking. If you want to go faster, just like scroll in with your wheel. So like I can scroll forward to go faster, I can scroll down to go slower, stuff like that. So when you first get into the Volga level, it looks pretty insane if you haven't spent any time with it. Essentially, it's a little bit overwhelming. But if you start looking into everything, you kind of learn like all the objects and the entities and the static props and stuff to use, like if you're building a map. So like if you go in here, what I've been doing is before I started creating maps like in the mod from scratch, is I'll just go to this Volga level and kind of see what they're doing for like all the scripted actions, the props, stuff like that. So example here is like you can see where Artyom falls in the water. There's like a little entity right here, or you can see where he falls in, or like the enemies right here, they're like placed and they have scripting actions, and pretty much like everything in the map is an entity, like a static prop or like a scripted event, stuff like that. So like I would probably spend a lot of time on this, just trying to learn how to do like all the shortcuts and like how to do things before you go to like a little modded map, just to get familiar. But as an example is like, say I didn't like this truck being here. What you can do is up here, like in the top toolbar, you want to make sure you're on this select key right here, like this arrow. The shortcut for this is S, but you'll just click here. And what's cool is like when you click on an object, it'll show you where it's at, like in all the directories that are in here. So like here, if you look, like a static propped is this truck, and it has like the name of it and everything. So if I didn't like this, like say I wanted to delete it, just click on this and hit the delete key, and then it'll like have you confirm it if you want to delete it, and then you delete it out. And it'll take a minute to register, and there it's gone right there. If you wanted to delete multiple objects at once, what you'll do is you'll hold control. You can like click on the truck, the barrels, and then like one of those troughs right there. You hit the delete key, and then it'll bring all of them up that you selected, and you'll just delete them. And so like we'll just do a few more, like these barrels. Get rid of this, delete. And so those are gone. So you can mess around with the map quite a bit, what you want to do. Like say you didn't like where this tower was, so you can click on this, and if you go to the move button up here, or like T is the shortcut for it, you can click on this and you can see you have like your axis arrows. So like if you wanted to go up with it, you can go up. You're gonna move it this way, you can go move it that way. So like if you're like, oh, I want to move the tower somewhere else and not have to recreate it, you can just move it like this. Keep moving it, and let's just say I want it right there. So I'm gonna go back down here and move it down right there. So you can do stuff like that, move objects around. You can unclutter a lot of this, like the UI elements. Like a lot of this stuff is like weather events, sound events, stuff like that. So like if you want to hide something, like you can hide a whole group by like right clicking on it and go to visibility and hide it. One thing I have found is like say you wanted to delete like the entire Aurora and like all the NPCs and everything. So there's like different groups of the Aurora. What I found is like you can't just hit like the delete key on this and delete the whole group for some reason. You have to like expand the subdirectories and then like highlight all of them and then hit the delete key, and it'll remove everything. Not sure why you can't just delete like the whole group, because like if you expand all of the trees in this and highlight them all, you can delete the whole group that way. So a little bit of a time saver if you're wanting to do that. And like one way is like say you're trying to get rid of like all of the water events in the map. So if you hit if you click on go back to your selector, you click on one of these, you can see how like basically all of these like red individual objects are like related to this like catfish, the one that goes through the level. So you could actually like highlight all of these, hit the delete key on these, and get rid of all of these, and they'll be gone off the map. And so yeah, you can just play around a lot, learn like how everything works. Some of the stuff you'll see is like everything has like little sections for it where it's like blocked off. Like you'll start to notice like what's a pathway. There's these things like restrictors where like some of the orange like walls you see here are like restrictor elements, so it keeps the players like out of it and stuff like that. So if I just wanted to mess around, one of the things I could do here is if you just want to play around with the terrain that's already here, so what you can do is basically reduce all of your subdirectories here to where like you can see all of them. And the main way like the map is laid out, like the water and all the snow and stuff like that, like primarily this section right here, if you click on it, it goes to this terrain. Like so you have your terrain parent, and then like your child terrain, and then if you click on this one, which is like the terrain like object for this terrain zeros, if you look over to the right, when you click on it, you have this properties window, and you can click on edit. So that allows you to start like editing the terrain. So here you get like this circle. You can make this circle like bigger too by like the pixel batch size over here. But like, say I wanted to modify it, the terrain, like, you know, add mountains and stuff like that. If you hold left click, it like rises it. If you hold right click, it like creates holes. You can kind of like even it out, and, you know, just do whatever you feel like. Like, you can go crazy with it, you know, like move it and stuff like that. Like, if you wanted to make like a bridge, you just hold it like this, you know. Then you could like smooth it out manually if you wanted to, or there's all kinds of different terrain like shortcut keys. So like, you could do stuff like, there's like a clean one, or it resets the whole map back to the way it was, or like you can flatten it, or like you can blur a terrain out, stuff like that. So you can mess around with the terrain that's already there, like in the Volga map, just going crazy with it. As far as if you wanted to mess around with like the objects in this game, with the SDK, I should say. We'll just use this area as an example. There's two things. So when I first looked at it, well, let me get back out of this terrain. Let me unclick that. So I want to go back to my selection here at the top left, and if you go back in, so one of the ways to add like stuff like in the SDK, like objects like soldiers, houses, you know, stuff like that. Down on the bottom left, there's this tab called Entity List. If you go in here, there's like, you know, foliage, buildings, basically a lot of stuff that's like in the SDK that you can just drag and drop and you'll get. So like one, you can go here. We'll go to vehicle. You know, let's just say we want like this Dresden truck. Just drop it in. And you can see that it added the object right here. It's missing some textures, but you get the point. Like, you can drag and drop stuff into it. So we'll just Control Z that to take it back out. One of the things that was confusing to me is like, if I looked in the this entity list, I wasn't seeing like all the models from in the game. These are more like models that have like properties to them, or have like scripts associated to them. So what you can do in order to like find the rest of the models is, so if you're wanting to add like models that aren't in the entity list, what you'll do is you go to the top toolbar here. And then this right here, you can see there's like entity, a bunch of other selections. You go in here and you'll select general. And then this, you'll go down to static prop. And then like, you'll just put the placeholder where you want the object. And once it registers, so like static prop right here, you'll click on this. So once you place the static prop down and you got it, what you'll do is you'll have this properties that's over here. You'll search for model. And then this triple periods right here. See, it's like select model to use. You'll go in here. You'll expand everything that's available to you. And you can look at all the models, the static models you want. So there's like buses, bridges, all this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to do something simple like, I don't know, let's just search for light. So like a light tower, like this one. So I'm pretty simple, straight up and down. So I'll hit OK, and you can see that it added the static props. So you can add stuff like that, props that way. So I think that's all I'm going to show as far as like this map and everything. Because like I said, you can go through it and learn like all of the different stuff and the events in this, and then kind of like all the hotkeys, like how to do everything. Just kind of mess around with the map that's already existing here. So I think the next thing we'll go on to is like how to create a map from scratch. Okay, so Was showing off the recent map that I was working on with the Volga one. We're going to get into creating a new mod. That's basically me starting from scratch. So what I got here is the Exodus SDK guide. You can go through this and kind of get a feel of how everything works. It's a pretty good guide where you can go through everything like level setups. It talks about it, like it talks about the terrain, like the rules, like how to do it, and then like how to manipulate the terrain with like some shortcut keys and stuff like that. But what the guide doesn't really help with is in terms of setting up the terrain for a new level, and that's I think where a lot of people get stuck on with trying to create a new mod. So what we're going to do is with the Exodus SDK launcher open and on the main one, so there's no extra mods or anything like that. It's all fresh. What you'll do is expand the folders, and when you see this built next to a directory, this means that like this layer here, like essentially this map is built and it's like good to go. So that like this 000 one's always good. So when you're creating a new mod, you want to select this one because this is like the staging area with the train and like the baseline. And then you also select like the empty one. So it creates like just a new empty shell almost. You'll hit create mod. And what you'll do when you get into creating a directory for this is what you got to do is, all right, so then you choose create mod. And what I did was down where my SDK directory is right here, I go in and I create a new folder. So I just call it Exodus mod. This is what the empty folder is going to be. And then I choose it right here and then hit OK. And then I call it Exodus mod, the same thing as the folder. And then you're going to just hit yes and copy everything. And so what this is going to do is basically what's creating like the new mod. It's going to basically calculate everything, load it all in and stuff like that. And it's going to close after it calculates everything. So don't worry about that. You'll essentially be reloading the SDK after it closes. Okay, so the SDK closed. That means it completed everything for the new mod setup. So I'm going to go back into the SDK. And what you'll see is in the dropdown, you'll see the Exodus mod, the new mod I created. So I'll click on that, expand the folders. You want this setup right here, the M3 with the 000s and the empty. And what you're going to do with this is you're going to click the 000 and the empty, and you're going to launch the editor. Okay, cool. So here's just an example of the staging area I was talking about. So when you hit the that 000s I was talking about, besides the new empty level, this is essentially like the staging area. So you don't have to do anything with this. This is basically like you load in like the main menu, and you'll select the new map, which is essentially like the level you're creating. So I'm going to exit out of this, and we're going to go back in the SDK. And so this time I'm not going to select the staging level. I'm just going to do the empty. So I'm going to launch the editor. Okay, so here's like the empty level, nothing here except for, the main, essentially the main player you're going to be using. The most important part about this is you don't want to start doing anything in the new level, like as it is. You don't want to add any objects, any terrains, anything like that. What you want to do is go to the very top, and you have these save buttons. You want to hit save right here, and I just call it, essentially you're setting up the map, but I'm just going to call it the same thing as the mod. So it's just easy to keep reference. So you can see it's putting under content maps, and you hit OK. And then that's all saved. And so what you'll see, the issue that most people run into is when you want to start filling in this new level here, like give it some terrain and some of the masks it needs. If you go down to the entity list here, this tab, not the filter, but the list, you have this terrain parent folder here, and then this terrain object. You'll drag this onto the empty area. And this is the error that a lot of people run into, is this unsupported image32 type. Basically, like the mask isn't there. And you'll notice that on the right, unlike the Volga map or the SDK test environment, the edit is grayed out. It's locked. You can't use any of it. So essentially what we have to do is borrow the texture assets from the other pre-existing stuff in SDK to support this new level. So what we're going to do is just leave it like this, how it is. We're going to have our two SDK folders open here. So on the left, I'm just going to keep it original to the SDK, and on the right is the folder directory I created that supports the new mod, so the Exodus mod one. So I'm going to go in here. Basically what the documentation doesn't tell you that you have to add in all these directories is if you go to content SDK, if you go to maps and you go into the SDK directory in this test environment, in here is some of the TIFF files that you need, but we'll get to that in a minute. Mainly what we want is this texture folder right here. It has all the textures we need, and inside of this you can see here's all the diffuse objects we need. So what I'm going to do is in here, you have to create the folder named as source. You can't have it any other way. It expects this directory layout. So you'll have source go in here. What you're going to do is copy all of the texture folder in there. It's like 20 something gigs. You'll put that in there, and you probably don't have to copy the whole directory, but I do it just in case any other elements in the empty level when I start adding stuff in needs those textures and all that. So I just do it just to be safe. So while we're waiting for that to copy, I'm going to go to the maps here. So the two areas we have to borrow stuff from as far as to complete the rest of it, the diffuse stuff, is in the SDK environment here in this terrain folder. These TIFF files, these extension ones, are the ones we need. So we're going to borrow these from the test environment and the 06 bridge map, the Volga one. These help support the mask layers where you can do like painting, like pathways and stuff like that. All right, so we're going to go into textures here, the one we copied over. I'm going to go to this terrain here. So here's all the diffuse stuff. I'm just going to grab all these TIFF ones from the SDK environment. And then I'm going to go under M3 for the 06 bridge, the Volga map, go into its ones and take these out. And I'm just going to replace them. I don't really care if they overwrite. The most important one you want later on is this output one. I'll show you what this does in a little bit, but you definitely want these. So we don't have to use this anymore. So what I'm going to do is go to the SDK, go to the Exodus mod. So we have to create a few more directories. So the source one right here that we just made, that has the textures and the terrain and that resolves that main error that we saw earlier. But I'm going to go ahead and fix a couple more issues that we might see too. So if you go into content and you look at maps right here, so right here in this content maps, the empty layer wants a terrain folder here. So I'm going to copy this terrain folder that was in the source one that we just made with all the TIFF stuff. So I'm going to paste that in there. And then I'm also going to paste it in the sub layer to that one. So that should be all we need to do. So what I'm going to do is delete the terrain. I'm going to re-add it. And this is the error that you want now. If you created all the directories correctly, like we just did, and have all the TIFF files and the mask, you want to make sure that you now see this unsupported image 32 error where it has like the $mask_add. So I've basically spent like an entire day like trying to troubleshoot this error, and I believe it doesn't like really matter in terms of like creating the mod. So I feel like when you get to this point, you're good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it just in case. And now what you want to do is we added the terrain, so you can see it down here, the terrain 000, blah, blah, blah. So now what we want to start doing is adding in the shader and essentially like assigning stuff. So you'll see like a pop-in layer mask. So what you're going to do here is on the right side, you can see that all the directories we put in didn't affect the lock on the edit. What you have to do to affect this lock on the edit where you can start using it is this height map. So you go to the triple periods on this terrain H map here. And if you place the those terrain files in the map directory like we did, so like content, maps, Exodus mod, terrain, and you add all those TIFF files in there correctly, the one you want is this terrain default one. So you hit OK. And you can see now that it changed the color of this, and you can now see that I can use the edit feature. So what we have to do now to get essentially the shader in where it creates like all the environment and stuff like that is you go down here to shader, and you'll see it says terrain/terrain. You now have the ability to change this to any terrain you want that's pre-built into the SDK. So like the bridge here is the Volga map. The desert is like that, the big, huge desert landscape map. Yamatal is like the nuclear bunker train ride. I can't remember what the valley is, and then you got Dead City. So you can play with all these and figure out which environment you want. So I'm just going to go with the bridge one just for the sake of it. And I actually did make a mistake. I forgot. You don't want the terrain default one. You actually want this output one. That was the one I mentioned earlier. That was really important. This one you can see actually does all the work. So this one creates like all the mountains. It basically like makes it the Volga map, the underlining like base of it. So it gives you like a really good working area. So, yep. And so what you can do to start working on this new level is I'm going to save. I'll save that. Just always make sure you're saving. And so what we're going to do down here is this player model right here, which is essentially RTM, has all the scripting and stuff with it. You don't need to change any of this. So what you're going to do is if you want the player, when they load up the mod, or if you like go into the game option, like to game up here on the top, is you make sure you have your selector tool up here, or you hit S to select it. So you're going to select the player model here, and then you're going to hit the move option. So up here, or you can hit T, and then I'm going to back out here with the shift key and the S key, and I'm going to move the player model up where he's in the map. And I'll just move him where he's not like phasing through the ground. So like right there's pretty good. So I'm going to save it again. And now basically you can kind of just start messing around and just do whatever you feel like. So I'm going to show you. So I'm just going to go in game. And this is fine. You got to calculate everything anytime you move something. So now you can see it picked up the player model. I can go around and basically do stuff. And if you need to test stuff in it, you can like open the console with the tilde and do like God mode, so you're invincible and stuff like that, and then hit tilde to exit back out. So yeah, you can explore your map, test it out, stuff like that. So I'm gonna hit Control Escape to exit out of the simulation, and I'm just going to hit no because I don't really want to track anything. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of like go over here a little bit, and you can scroll and go faster if you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an entity. Let's see, I got a facility, gateway ladder, foliage, NPC player, static. So there's like vehicles, and there's all kinds of options that are in the SDK, like weather and stuff. I've only spent like basically 2 days in it, and this is really as far as I've got trying to like build and everything. I'm still learning stuff, so there's a lot of scripting and all kinds of stuff you can do. So we'll just do something quick. We'll go up here, get out of terrain. We'll go to general and do static prop. So I'll just put my static prop down here and zoom in a little bit. So this static prop is where I can put my models in. So I'm going to go up here to the top right in the properties, and I'm just going to search for, I don't know, building. Oh, no, wait. I got to search for model. I forgot. So your model, you search for that, go in here. Then this is where you can start looking at everything. So buildings, gatehouse, village club, train depot. What if there's any other buildings? Railway borders, stone, town's trash can. Trees. Let's go with trees. Let's see what kind of trees we got here. Some grass. What tree is in here? Trees. Okay, so we got some good trees here. So let's get this tree right here. So we'll hit OK, and boom, we got our tree. We'll click off that, and I'll shift S. So here's our tree. All right, so we'll try another one. So we'll do static prop again. I'll just put something right here. Go to models. Let's see if there's a bigger building. Train depot, gatehouse, village club. Okay, this is kind of cool. Clubhouse. Let's do this. So click off of that. Okay. So let's go check these out. So take our move option, and let's move our friend here. I'm pretty sure you don't have to move this guy like every single time. I think if you choose the option to game sync, I think it'll place the player model like where you're at in the editor. But I'm just going to move this guy over. Whoa! I think I made the movement speed too fast. There we go. Move this over here. Keep moving them. And that's a decent spot. So we'll go in game. And cool. So it looks like our objects kind of rendered a little bit, the static props. Looks like a few little texture issues, but yeah, nothing crazy. At least most of it's there. You can see you got the tree and the house. And let's go see what's in this. And yep. So it's part of a house. You can explore and stuff. So you can see where basically these maps you can start doing whatever you want. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hit Control Escape again. I'm going to not log it to the simulation. I'm going to hit save. And so this time I'm going to exit out. And we're going to go to the SDK. And this time, since the Exodus mod, this one right here, we're still under the Exodus mod in the drop down. And then here is essentially I call it the layer, but it's the map really, the mod. And And so now this build option is how you can build it out. So basically you're like building the mod, and then you can launch it in game. So we'll hit build mod, and I'm going to create another folder. I'm going to say Exodus build. That's what I'm going to call it. And then there, and then I'm going to hit OK. We'll call this Exodus build. Then we'll hit OK. It's like build takes some time, yada yada. And essentially, this is going to build out the mod and all the contents like in the layer or the map, and you'll be able to use it and launch it in game. So yep, you can see there's our map right there. It's loading the layers in, like the work we did. There's the main menu, that staging 000 area. Cool. So the SDK closed after it completed everything. So we'll go into the Exodus build directory here. You can see it put the contents and stuff in there. So we'll check the map. So yep, here's the map and all the stuff that's in it. So we'll go back to the SDK, and we'll go in here, and then you can see the Exodus build one here is right there. And what's cool about this is like you'll go into it. It has all the stuff there, but what's neat is if you go back into the Exodus mod, what you want to know if you have built the mod correctly. Remember how earlier I talked about how the 000 says built next to it? That means it's good. So now you can see after I built the mod, the Exodus mod map, the layer that we created has this built next to it. So we're good. So if I hit launch game, that should launch everything up. You'll be able to play it, and yep, that's pretty much it. So I hope this helps a lot of people. I know I've been struggling pretty much like the past couple of days trying to figure out how to just navigate through everything and all the keybinds and all the textures and stuff. The documentation's pretty good, and the engine's pretty easy to navigate, but the error handling could be a little bit better as far as the directories. But yeah. If you guys have any questions, or if you guys like learn anything else besides me, because like I said, I've only got a couple of days in, just post them in the comments and kind of get feedback from everybody. Like, might help everybody learn some new tips and tricks and stuff like that. And the more I learn in it, and the more I start working on this new mod for it, I might make some more videos on how to do stuff. So